Welcome back. This is The Sit Down, and I'm joined now by someone I'm a big fan of, Raul Castillo, star of the new movie, We the Animals. Welcome to AM to DM.
Thank you.
This is a beautiful film. I watched this last night. As I was just saying to you, there's some real, it's a cross between Moonlight and Boyhood and Terrence Malick. It's a beautiful story. You play someone who's not exactly the most beloved character in this film. He's a rather brutish father to these three boys. What was it like inhabiting this kind of very machismo character?
Well, I think it's sort of, the character's sort of reflective of fathers in general. Like, they, the mothers sort of do all the work and get none of the glory. And I think that the pops in this story serves a similar function. But it was making the film was a great, labor of love, and it was an incredible process working with Jeremiah, with Sheila Vand, who plays the mother of the boys, and working with the three boys was incredible. They had never acted before, they'd never done a film, so that was a really special process. Yeah,
so how do you on set act with these kids who've never acted before? I imagine that's a big challenge, right?
You don't have to act because they're just living and breathing and being authentic. And Jeremiah Zagar, our director, was very intent on working in this. He's a documentarian by trade. This is his first narrative film, so he was very intent on making it with non-actors. Sheila and I were the only quote-unquote professional actors in the film, and we spent a lot of time before shooting kind of living and coexisting as a family.
In order to kind of build up this sort of relationship.
Right, so by the time the cameras were rolling, there was a fluidity.
And you were just saying the oldest one of these boys is just heading into high school now? That's pretty cool to go to high school with a movie behind you.
Absolutely.
I think you're going to be pretty cool in high school, I would say. I have to know, so we're talking about this idea of like father figures and macho characters. There's been a lot of discussion this past year about what being a man entails and what are the responsibilities of men. And you filmed all this, obviously, before the Me Too movement started. I'm wondering, have you learned anything in this last year that you wish you knew back then?
No, I don't think that I've learned. I think if anything, it's sort of what's gone on with the Me Too movement has only sort of supported my suspicions, and I think that the film really explores toxic masculinity, and then the novel, because the film is based off a novel, I think it really examines masculinity in an honest and raw way. That and I think the film really reflects that in a way that I'm proud of.
It's funny because I was watching it and I was thinking of your character in Looking as you play this kind of guy who's having to educate this clueless white guy, and here you are, you're on the other end of the clueless spectrum here, ignorant to your own son here as well. I'm wondering, there was a bit of you're on the other side of the queer experience here.
That's right.
Aren't you, right?
That's right.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like drawing on that ignorance, is it like, there's a lot that men are kind of we have to remind ourselves of, right? These like outside forces that we're not paying attention to.
That's right.
And when you were going through how you built this character, were you drawing from people in your own life that you knew?
Absolutely. I definitely grew up in an environment where machismo was sort of the given, and I had to learn to navigate that. Luckily, I had theater and acting, and I think all this kind of the arts that sort of exposed me to a lot. I'm really grateful for that.
We talked about Looking, we're talking about We the Animals. Do you feel there's a greater pressure when these films are about marginalized communities?
Absolutely. But I think that the great gift that we had was the novel. Justin Torres, who wrote this novel, gave us this great story, and it's at the end of the day, it's not biography, it's fiction, but it's very much reflective of his own life and his own experiences, and I think that he really went above and beyond to kind of like depict what true masculinity is, and these false notions of masculinity, and what our protagonist Jonah is, sort of how he's existing in this world of real toxic masculinity.
Looking was really embraced by a lot of people in the gay community. I loved it, but there were other people who didn't feel that they were represented in it. And I'm wondering, is that just because it's unfair, do you think, because there's just sort of a dearth of other media?
I think that's exactly what it is. I think if Looking had come out now, I think it'd be embraced in a whole different way. I think I think it was a little bit ahead of its time in a way. I do think that people were really hungry for stories like it, and I think that the expectations sort of, I think there was a lot of criticism, but I think the Looking fans at the end of the day are so loving, and I'm so proud of that show and so proud to be a part of that, and I hope that the Looking fans, watch We the Animals, because I think there's a lot of intersectionality.
Yeah, definitely. I'm wondering, as a straight man who played a gay man in Looking, there was a bit of a controversy recently with this Disney news that they've cast a straight man in, I think, the first openly gay role that's going to be in a Disney film, and there was a bit of backlash to that from some in the gay community, and I'm wondering what your perspective was on that debate.
I mean, I understand that, because there are fewer gay characters out there, and I get it. I mean, I would hate to. It's a complicated. There's so much behind that, but I would hate to. Limit a gay actor from playing a straight role. Similarly, it's so complicated. It's hard to say. I got really lucky. I got to play this incredible gay character, and I wanted to honor what that experience is. But I understand people's frustrations, and it makes sense to me.
Yeah. We had Gina Rodriguez here on the show a couple of weeks ago, and she was just promoting this great film on her Instagram page. Did you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. Just making sure I wasn't the first to tell you. Good. And she was talking about how she feels like these elite Hollywood institutions, like the Emmys in particular, don't do enough to recognize Latino actors. And I'm wondering, how do we change that?
I don't know. I wish I had the answer for that. I mean, I think there's a lack of there's sort of a lack of stories out there to begin with, and I think we have to foster writers and directors who are championing stories of people of color and telling our stories. I think that at the end of the day, the industry has to cultivate that on the writer's side, on the director's side. And certainly for actors, we have to create opportunities. I mean, I think TV is really, there are more opportunities for people of color on television. I hope that film and theater catch up.
Why do you think that is? What is it about TV that gives actors of color more opportunities?
I think Netflix, in some ways, kind of changed the tone. I think when you see shows like Orange is the New Black, and you see this great, incredible, diverse cast of all these beautiful women that are like, just representative. I think, and it's interesting that it's a show about women in prison, but but it really represents, I think, an America that I'm interested in sort of seeing, and it's given opportunities to a lot of my friends who are Latino and Black actors on that show, and that I think I don't know. I think I just think that the people that are behind this sort of they're pulling the trigger on these projects have to get behind stories that reflect an America that's truer. Yeah,
speaking of America, one thing I didn't know until I started researching for this segment was that you're from McAllen, Texas, which is a city that's been in the news a lot recently.
That's right.
I'm wondering, what do you think Americans don't know about border communities that you wish they did?
God, I think that people need to understand that the border is a more fluid place. That there's. Yes, I mean, where I grew up, there's a river, but ultimately it's just a line in the sand at the end of the day. And there's one country on the other side. There's another, Mexico's right there. I don't know. I grew up going back and forth so much. So for me, I understood being binational.
Yeah.
And I think that America is the United States is so huge that people forget that there are these other countries, right? That we have these neighbors right next door to us. I think when I just went to Europe for the first time this summer, and I think Europe is there's so many countries so close to each other.
Yeah.
The United States is so wide and so far spread out that I think people forget that there are these other countries right next door, and I didn't take that for granted when I was a kid, because I understood that my parents are right from across the border. I grew up going back and forth. I'm an American by citizenship, but I do feel very binational.
Well, it's beautifully said. Thank you so much for joining us. This is a beautiful film. I really encourage everyone to go see it. We the Animals is in theaters right now.